Let's set the scene. It's Thanksgiving dinner, you're sitting next to your Uncle Al, and he turns to you and says, I am just sick of all these people talking about how the earth is round. The earth is flat. I'm not falling off the edge. Stop. What do? How do you have a conversation with your Uncle Al when he obviously very strongly believes that the earth is flat? How do you have that conversation without ruining your family Thanksgiving? When it comes to science and scientific issues, they're often kind of cloaked in falsehoods. It can be hard to deduce fact from fiction for the average person, especially when scientific issues are so complex and they're presented in an equally complex media environment. As individuals, we get to pick and choose our own media, and we can avoid any information that may conflict with our beliefs. This is the process of selective exposure, and it can increase divides in common issues and how we understand them. Anti-science conversations tend to sensationalize claims, and they appeal to our emotions rather than reason. This, coupled with the fact that we are just inundated with information, we may not have the time to assess that information for accuracy. And so that can really hinder our ability to detect misinformation. When we focus on communication, we also think, who do we focus our communication efforts on? When individuals believe false science and it's grounded in their ideology, they're not always very receptive to conversations. And in fact, sometimes our conversations can backfire and lead them to be more entrenched in their beliefs. This can be grounded in our biased thinking or our ability to partake in logical fallacies. For example, when we cherry pick information or results that support our beliefs, this is confirmation bias. Or on the flip side, if we want to resist any evidence that we don't like or that conflicts with our beliefs, this is disconfirmation bias. Now, these are processes that we often engage with all the time and don't always recognize. It's important to also note that conspiracy theorists and science deniers are a small but vocal minority, and it can be tempting for scientists and the general public to kind of disregard them. But it's important not to ignore this. When we want to think about countering misinformation, we need to understand the impact that it's having. Misinformation not only spreads false beliefs, but it can also dissuade people from engaging with the media, right? They may not actively learn the truth because they just don't want to interact with it. When individuals are presented with conflicting information, even if the conflicting argument isn't a very good one, like Uncle Al, that can really hinder our ability to listen to facts. It reduces the effectiveness of science-based facts. And so, as scientists, it's important to help people to understand evidence and how misinformation works. You can think about like a magician, right? If you learn the secrets behind their magic trick, suddenly it's not as wondrous anymore. And the same can be true for misinformation. This process in communication is what we call inoculation, kind of a reference to viruses. If you get a shot with a small amount of a virus, then it's going to build your resistance so you don't get sick. It's the same thing with misinformation. If we show someone a small amount of weak misinformation and explain the tactics behind it, it can better prepare them to identify and resist misinformation in the future. It's important to discuss, what are the techniques that are used to distort facts, and then also what's the motivation behind that misinformation? Is it large corporations seeking profit? When we talk about inoculation, when it comes to scientific facts, there's a process involved. We present the facts in kind of a simple and meaningful way. Then you discuss the myth. And it's important to warn your audience, the person you're talking to, that you're about to mention a myth so that sometimes we hear something and automatically believe it. So we want to preface with, this is a myth or this is false. And then the third step is to resolve the conflict between the fact and the myth. If we go back to our example with Uncle Al, we can say, we've known for hundreds of thousands of years that the earth is round, but there still is a myth that some people believe that the earth is flat. This is false because of so many forms of evidence. And then you could talk about how when there's an eclipse, the shadow of the Earth is round, or how ships slowly appear and disappear on the horizon, or how someone can get on a plane and circle the Earth in that trip. This may seem absurd, right? But Uncle Al's actually in good company. There was a conference in 2019 of flat earthers that had over 600 attendees. So it's important to have these discussions. And you may be asking yourself, okay, but how do I protect myself from misinformation? It really is the process of building your science literacy and your media literacy. When those are supported, then we can have a greater ability to detect misinformation. We can think about, where am I getting my information from? Am I looking for alternative sources, or looking for confirmation from other sources, or maybe disconfirmation? Am I kind of questioning the information that's provided? Am I recognizing that maybe it was sensationalized, or there was some sort of influence on my interpretation? And when we build those critical thinking skills, we're greater prepared to have discussions surrounding misinformation and contentious science issues. To find out what a magician and science misinformation have in common, watch our full-length video.